Hi, welcome back to Season 3 of InterpreTIPS, where you get to ask any burning questions you've ever had about interpreting. I'm Marjory, Director of Cross-Cultural Communications and founder of the Community Interpreter. Today's question comes from an interpreter in Illinois. It's about exceptions to the use of first person when interpreting, but we've had the same or variations on that question from two other interpreters in other states. Here's the first question. I love watching your YouTube videos on InterpreTIPS. I have the following question. I read an article stating third person is best suited for some interpreting encounters, such as end-of-life discussions, palliative care, and vicarious trauma. Are national standards for medical interpreters being updated or modified to recommend using third person instead of first person when interpreting in some medical encounters? The other two were asking essentially the same question. Here's one of them. There's been a heated debate recently about whether it's okay to use third person when interpreting in various encounters, such as palliative care, hospice, vicarious trauma with children, or even when informing an expectant mother about a stillborn. Is it okay to switch to third person in special circumstances? Or should we stick to our guns and never change from first person? The short answer to these questions is yes, there are exceptions to using first person when you interpret, but no, there are no immediate plans to change national standards for medical interpreting. That will take time. Meantime, the exceptions are more or less based on de facto national best practice. What are those exceptions? Well, the first category would be when using first person causes some kind of confusion. For example, interpreting for children, especially children younger than 8 or children in hospitals, where definitely children can become confused by use of first person about who is speaking. Or for interpreting for elderly, very frail patients, or those with dementia or psychoses. Interpreting for people who are drunk or on drugs or in deep shock, or all-out emergencies, or several people speaking at once, the out-of-control situations where the interpreter has to summarize, because interpreters tend to summarize in third person. The second category of reasons you might switch to third person is trauma. And this is different because it's not about confusion, it's about protecting the interpreter. For example, if you're interpreting some really graphic, distressing content, several therapists have told me they've watched interpreters instinctively switch to third person. And the research supports this and suggests that if you do that just while you're interpreting the really graphic, disturbing content, it may protect you from vicarious trauma. Just remember to get back to first person as soon as possible. And that's not just for those tough end-of-life discussions or palliative care. It could be for sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, refugee trauma, torture survivors. Just use your judgment if you can feel yourself being affected. However, the exception is court interpreting. In courts, you would not switch from first person to third person. That is not permissible. In short, thanks for the excellent questions. I hope the answers were helpful.